Well, good morning, folks. Hope you're all enthused and you've had your caffeine this morning. I've only had one, so I'll be up for my second very shortly. My name's Mark Westerby. I'm the CEO of the Random Group, so it's our great pleasure to sponsor the Talk About Cool sessions in this room for Show Me Wellington. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what we do. We're at booth 99 outside. There's a big statue of Kate Shepherd, so you can't miss us. We're a combination of three organisations, Cuba Creative, which works in event management a little bit, but we're also specialising in shipping container modification as pop-up spaces. Random Films has been going for about 10 years now. Random Films does a lot of investment in feature film production. So we've got Pork Pie that's just come out. We've got Beyond the Known World, which comes out shortly, and many other films. We also do lots of equipment hire and behind-the-scenes shooting for events and performing arts work as well. And Propeller Studios is our main studio out in Shelley Bay. We have about 3,000 props that we rent out for events. We've also got a bespoke build facility, so we can, you name it, we can build it. We've got CNC machines and laser cutters and all sorts of weird, wonderful wizardry. We also have some event space out there for hire, meeting rooms, all sorts of things like that. So feel free to come and talk to myself or one of the team afterwards. We're here all day, and I do hope you enjoy Show Me Wellington. But now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Belinda Moore from Strategic Membership Solutions. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. How are you going? Awake? I'm not, because I come from Australia, Brisbane. I'm 3 hours behind you all, so it's just after 6 and I've only had 2 coffees. But I'll do my best to stay awake for the presentation. Now, who here's been to one of my presentations before? Anybody? Oh, a few. That's good. Sorry for the second time you're going to hear some of these stories, but I do have some favourites.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
You on a microphone because we're
doing a thing?
There's a handheld behind you if you'd like to walk around.
That's right, I'll stay tethered. The problem is I've got Italian heritage, which means that I can't actually sit and talk at the same time. I need to move my hands. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been working in associations since the early 90s, and I started out in membership roles. And I had a lot of success because one of the things that I noticed as I worked with associations in both my full-time and my voluntary capacities was that everybody had the same challenges: how to recruit, how to retain, how to get people to your events, how to be financially sustainable. So I developed a model for recruiting and retaining members that was so successful that in the association that I was in at the time, I went from 1,500 members to over 3,000 members in a little over 2 years. Now, that was, a little bit different. So I got asked to speak at an AusA conference in the 90s. And I got up and at a lectern very similar to this one. I gave my presentation, I talked about my model, and thinking, I was quite young then. And I thought, everyone will know this. I hope I'm not telling them how to suck eggs. However, after the presentation, most of the conference delegates lined up behind the lectern wanting to know how they could do the same in their own organisations and whether or not I could come and help them. So I started taking annual leave so that I could go and do this fun stuff on the side, and pretty soon I started to realise that not only was I making more money on my fun stuff on the side, but I was actually really loving it. So I stepped off into what I do now, which is devoting my entire life to membership. And over the course of the last 20 years, I have worked with thousands of different associations on their challenges. And one of the things that's really key in this sector is events. When you're looking at membership, the symbiotic nature of membership and events is absolutely unquestioned when you look at all of the research. And this is a little baby hippo that hasn't quite got the idea that the birds are there to help him, not to chase him as he flees in terror. And this is the challenge that we often have when it comes to membership and events departments in associations. They don't always work as synergistically as they should. And as a result, there's a lot of missed opportunities. Because events are something special. In fact, does anyone here watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Guys, thank you for the people who put their hand up. It is a really excellent show, but this particular character always makes me laugh. One of her lines was, I know how to kiss, I've read books. Now, if people just wanted information, they'd read a book. When you attend an event, you want the experience. There's something more than just simply the information that is going to be conveyed, and that is why it makes such an excellent opportunity to recruit members. Now, can I get a quick show of hands? Who here is actually from an association? Hands up. Awesome. I'm with my people. Okay, well then one of the key factors for success when you're looking at association membership is this: community. Community is what drives memberships for associations. There will always be competitors for your products, your services, your communications channels, and even your events. You can't stop the fact that there is competition out there, both for profit and not for profit. But what you can do is you can shield yourself against that. And one of the things that is almost impossible to compete against is a strong and engaged community of people. Now, yes, there are lots of online tools that you can use to build communities, but really nothing beats a good face-to-face event. The emotional engagement that you can achieve with your members now is very, very powerful, because, you know, when I first started out in associations, we didn't have email back then. In fact, fax was still pretty cool. And is there anyone here who can remember, you know when you wanted a photocopy and you had those machines that you turned and then you smelt them afterwards? Or am I like really old here right now? Thank you. Yes, there are people who remember that. So that was still pretty cool for us too. So when we looked at communication with our members, it was very much an association to member. We kept our members up to date. We told them what they needed to know. We sent them their magazine 4 times a year, whether they liked it or not, and there was pretty much nothing else. And back then, when you said you kept someone up to date 4 times a year via magazine was okay. It's not the case anymore. Now, when you look at engaging with your members and building communities, the most successful associations out there are the facilitators and enablers of connections between members, not just back and forth between the association and their members. And that's where you can create value, that's where you can create community. And that is why your events are absolutely critical. Now, in this presentation, I've promised 15 ideas. I've separated them into pre-event, during event, and post-event, but there's going to be a few more than 15 as we go through. If anybody has any questions, throw up your hand. You can't throw me off my stride. I love membership. I'm passionate. It is my life. That and my husband, who's here, so I have to say that. You'll hear from him later. Okay, let's jump into it. Before the event starts, what are some of the ways that you can better engage with your members to both recruit and retain? First of all, get both members and non-members engaged in planning. Talk to them. I was working with one of the Australian Medical Association state offices a couple of weeks ago, and we were looking at how they're marketing their events and why their open rates for their EDMs, their electronic direct mails, are dropping off. And I said, okay, well, let's look at your international conference. They do these long-haul conferences that run in Europe. I said, so tell me, how do you market this? And they said, oh, well, we send this email out to at least 8 times to everybody and more to others. That's all right, that's my husband, he's seen me before. So I said, okay, well, let's have a look at these. And I said, okay, well, what is your open rates on these and who attends? Because this is going to your entire membership base. Now, if any of you have, who here is from a professional association? Okay, who here has a definite range of younger members to older members? Okay, so you're going to really relate to this. I said, right, you've got young doctors and then you've got your older professional doctors. Where do most of your delegates come from for this event? And they said, oh, 100% the older doctors. I said, what, you've been running this event for 12 years? You're meaning to tell me that in the last 12 years, not a single one of your younger doctors has actually attended this event? And they're like, yeah, not a single young doctor has ever attended this event. I said, okay, and you send 8 emails and other documentation out to these younger doctors about this event. It's never occurred to you to maybe segment it or maybe not send them crap they're not interested in? I said, if you really want to engage younger members in this particular event, why not get them involved in the planning process? Why not get some of this market segment that's not currently engaging with this event to figure out how we can make this event more accessible to them? So you're not just getting past delegates involved, you're actually trying to get those segments that you want to get involved into the event. And that's something that they're moving to at the moment, to try and figure out how they can make this event more attractive to the younger doctors. The other thing they're doing is they're doing some breakaway events for them. But an engaged member renews. Has anyone here read the decision to join research? Okay, guys, make a note and you can email me if you can't get a copy of it. The definitive research into associations globally is called The Decision to Join. It is produced by the American Society of Association Executives. If anyone wants, give me your card and I'll send you a summary document of it. In fact, if anyone wants, give me a card afterwards and I'll send you a list of recommended reading that every association professional must read, because there are at least 8 different publications and reports that I think are absolutely critical reading if you want to be operating on the edge of best practice. Because the sector is changing so much at the moment. Changing technology, generations in the workforce, communications mediums have meant that we've seen more change in associations in the past 5 years and coming up over the next couple of years than we've seen in the 400 years that they've existed prior to that. So it's important to stay at the top of this. Okay. Next, recruit and renew via online and offline registration processes. When someone's making the decision to purchase something, they're very open to making an additional purchase at that point. So do you provide the ability for people to join and renew via your online and offline registration processes? I highly recommend this. It can be very, very effective. The only challenge is, if, for example, someone can register for your conference and at the same time tick a box to join at the same time, those people are at high risk of non-renewal. If you look at the Marketing General Membership Benchmarking Reports, tip, that's one of the recommended readings, they benchmark every year retention rates, first-year member retention rates, open rates on emails, a whole raft of different statistics related to membership. Now, they've shown very clearly that retention rates for first-year members are much, much lower than your overall retention rate. And this is a global phenomenon. And retention rates for first-year members who've been recruited via an incentive are even lower. It means you need to have a really good new member integration program on there. Make sense? So is there anyone here who enables currently people to join via the registration forms? How do you find that works for you? Do you get a few? Yeah, and it's a great way just to pick it up, as long as you can put that extra new member integration program at the end of it. Now, number 3, segmenting your marketing to specific offers at different groups. Now, this is a really interesting one. If you are marketing an event, naturally all of you would be segmenting at this point, because you're not going to send the same message to an older person as a younger person. In fact, when you're running an event, you may not realize it, but you're actually running 2 events. The research is quite clear on this. It shows that younger members, when they attend an event, or younger people, it's about their learnings, because often they're at the start of their career or the start of their businesses, and so they don't need to be just kept up to date. They need to be brought up to date. They need that background information. They need that context setting. So when they come to an event, they're often looking at who's speaking and what am I going to learn. But if you've got somebody who's advanced in their career, or who has who's been to a lot of those events before, they're actually not coming for that as strongly. What they're coming for are what we call kernels or insights. They're often, the key takeaways that they're going to get is just 1 or 2 things that they heard that are going to really enable them to transform something that's important to them. So that is why we see a couple of different things happening. In a number of associations at the moment, we have a secondary drop-off. We know that first and second year members have a low retention rate, but they're also about the 5 to 6 year mark. Sometimes we see a secondary dip, and that's for associations whose events don't tend to change much and tend to be very introductory in nature. We're also seeing events. If you want to tailor events to older people, get more senior people engaging at your events, then you need to try some of the new event formats. Free-form events, programless events. This whole having one person talking up the front, talking to a group of people, as we're doing now, is not always going to be the best way to run an event. In fact, one of the most successful events I've ever run, and I've run thousands of events over the years, was in Rotorua. And it was an event that people had to apply to come on. And it was only available to CEOs, and not everybody who wanted to come got to come. And it was freeform. So we had a facilitator but no speakers. And the delegates got off the plane, got put onto a boat to go across the lake, which incidentally broke down halfway across the lake, at which point my husband stood up and said, "Welcome to the session on risk management." And people actually thought it was part of the program until the towboat showed up. But what we did there is we would take them extreme off-road, the full drive course there, and then afterwards run a session on leadership. And then the delegates would talk about it. And it was funny, I spoke at a conference in Melbourne at the end of last year, and I was giving this example about how we'd got the best feedback I'd ever had off an event, and I normally get pretty awesome feedback from events, but even this was off the charts. And someone in the audience stood up and held up their book, and he said, "I was on that event. That was 5 years ago now, and see this is the notebook. I carry it everywhere with me, and everyone on that event, we actually still have a group and we meet regularly because that event changed our lives." Now imagine your members being able to say that about your events. And the only reason we got those people to those events, because we ran a segmented event that was very, very targeted just towards senior people to enable them to get as many kernels as possible, appreciating the fact that an introductory lecture is not going to be as useful to them. Now, one of the other things that the voucher offer with membership, it's probably a few more ideas coming within each of these ideas. So, free membership doesn't work. Generally speaking, in 99.999 cases out of 100, free membership is a dud because you get a lot of people join, but when you try to get them up into a paid scenario, it's very, very difficult because you've got to shift the whole nature of the value proposition. However, one of the things that we've seen work quite well is what we call voucher membership. So you can put an offer out that says, pay $200 to join, and you will immediately get a $200 voucher back that can be spent on association products and services. Now, that's very powerful because people are seeing that they're immediately getting their money back. But if you think about it, first of all, there's generally about a 20% redemption rate on those vouchers. So really, out of 100 members who join, only 20 of them are going to redeem the voucher anyway. And your profit margins in, say, your events and things like that, you can stand to get an extra couple of people in the room. It's really not going to hurt you. So rather than giving free membership, using that incentive-based offer, particularly around events, can be very powerful. Now, and I'm going through at a quick rate of knots. Am I going too fast? Cool, sorry, we've only got 45 minutes, and I normally talk on this stuff for like a day. So next of all, creating campaigns that integrate all mediums. We've had some phenomenally successful campaigns recently through combining electronic direct mail, hard copies, and follow-up phone calls. There is an association-specific outbound call centre who we use called Optimum Contact. And we used them recently with the Electrical Trades Union in Victoria for a cheeky renewal campaign. A cheeky renewal campaign is where you get a list of everyone who hasn't renewed in the last 3 years, who's still a valid contact prospect for membership who hasn't specifically opted out. You send them a renewal form via email, then follow it up with a hard copy, and then you phone them. We did $497,000 in cheeky renewals in 3 weeks. And funny enough, the union hadn't been going to follow up those members anymore. And the success factor there was the addition of the phone call into the process. It was one thing they hadn't done prior. When you're looking at event marketing, though, the areas that we've also had a lot of success in when doing this is varying the EDM from person. Often a lot of the EDMs go out as info at, or admin at, or events at. Those will always have a lower open rate. Your standard HTML emails with a banner heading, I'm not a huge fan. They really had the open rates on those are pretty bad. Imagine if from your organisation, each person sent out different emails. So your events manager might send an email out to the members saying, hi Jane, I'm really excited to let you know that we've just booked in this speaker. I see you haven't registered for the conference yet. I think you'd really enjoy it. Click here to read the program. Warm regards, Joe Smith, the events manager. Those kind of emails that look like they're sent specifically to an individual, from an individual, achieve higher open rates if used judiciously. Try not to overuse it. and vary who it goes for, and make sure it's match to match. If you've got something going out to a very senior person, say head of a company of 500 staff and a multi-billion-dollar turnover, well, that personalised emails like that should probably come from your CEO. You bought me coffee. I knew I loved you. So make sure that you are very careful in the way that you craft those kind of messages, but that kind of thing is powerful and will seriously beneficially affect your open rates. Something else when you're looking at your comms for the event marketing that I've seen the Chiropractors Association in Australia has done quite successfully is they monitor who opens their emails. So say you're announcing your conference and you send out the promo for your conference, and out of the 100% of people who get it, your open rate is, say, 42%, which is actually pretty average right now. They actually drop a list out of the people who didn't open it, the 58% who didn't open it, and then they send them a hard copy. Because what they're trying to do is to effectively communicate, and communication is not sending people crap. Good communication is when you send something out that people receive and act upon. And so whenever you're sending your comms out, think, what action do we want to inspire, and how are we making it as easy as possible for people to actually undertake that action? Have we got direct links to be able to register? Have we answered their questions? Have we targeted it effectively? Have we really got to the emotion of what's in it? And have we recognised the fact that events serve multiple purposes? The younger people are coming for the learnings, the older people are coming really for the kernels, and frankly for everybody it's a social thing. Your conferences are kind of sometimes like dating agencies. So there's a very good chance that people are going to meet their future partner or their tonight partner at your event, as my husband and I actually met at an association event ourselves, just to prove the point. So think about how you can enhance those networking opportunities and make them appropriate. When I was asked to speak at the Electrical Trade Union conference, and the State Secretary came up and said, right, you're speaking at my conference. This is kind of, I've had to remove all of the swear words from it because every second word is an F when you're talking to the unions. And I said, oh, okay, yes. And he said, right, there's 350 delegates. They're all blokes. You're welcome to come to dinner. I'm sure you'll understand there'll be no dancing. Think about who's coming and make sure you gear the event to be exciting to those people. When you're doing your programs, think about your program in a way that's going to maximise the delegate experience. So you need to ensure that you open with someone who's going to set the scene that's really going to inspire, invigorate and motivate people. Make sure your closing speaker, spend the money if you need to make sure that there's such a draw card that they're going to keep people at the event the whole time. I'll talk more about that when we get to at the event. But really, you want to have money can't buy experiences. You want to have something there which a person is going to talk about later on. We all know they're going to whinge about the food and the air conditioning. If you can stop them doing that by having awesome food and somehow air conditioning that's cool for the guys and warm for the women, go for it. But think about other things. I know I get suckered into the American Society of Association conferences so often because, like, once Jay Leno was the opening speaker, incredible. Another time, the gala dinner was on the deck of the battleship Missouri. I got to tell you, I did not look as good as Cher on that cannon. And you go, think about the things that can make it different. Do you know, I made $14,000 giving away a car last year. Now, it was a conference. There was 350 delegates there, 300 of them who were eligible to win the car. And so what we did is I looked at my exhibition space and I went, right, we've got some dead space here. We're not going to use it. So we rang up a salary packaging guy and said, right, I'll give you this stand space for free if you give me a car that we can use for our passport. And, you know, if you go to somebody who's in that kind of position, they can access cars far, far more cheaply than we can. He said, oh, give me a couple of hours. He came back. He said, right, no worries. You got the car? I said, great. So then we sent an email out to all of our exhibitors. And we said, right, for only $990, you can be one of the 14 additional places on this passport, which will pretty well guarantee that just about everyone at that event is going to come to your stand, because who has ever had a 1 in 300 chance of walking away with a brand new car? A couple of hours later, $14,000 up on the balance sheet. It wasn't a hard sell to make, but think about it. Not only did we make $14,000 from that, but the delegate experience was properly enhanced because suddenly there was a really exciting offer around that event. Make sense? You're a very quiet group. Any questions so far? I just like to make sure you're all awake. So, okay, during the event. You want to recruit and retain members during the event. This is a great opportunity. Oh, one thing I forgot. When you have non-members registering for events, don't process their registration without calling them first. A really great tool is if you've got a non-member who's registered for an event, just give them a call and say, hi, just wanted to let you know we've got your registration safe and sound. I'm about to process that now, but I noticed you're not a member. Did you want to take this opportunity to join? The simple addition of that phone call into your processes will pick up new members because in a lot of instances, people aren't joining just because they don't have quite enough information. And if you truly believe that someone's better off as a member than a non-member, then what you're doing is just good customer service. It's not even sales. So, during the event, visual indicators. It is really, really important that people understand who the new members and who the prospective members are. And let me just relate to you an experience about how an event caused a loss in members. A friend of mine sits on the board of an association in Queensland. Due to my friendship with her, I introduced a new member into that association. Now, a couple of weeks later, they had their AGM dinner, which is effectively a bribe to get enough people along for a quorum so that you can get everything through. I managed to avoid going because I loathe those things, generally speaking. But both my friend who sits on the board and the friend of mine I introduced as a member turned up. Now, I caught up with a friend of mine who sat on the board a few days after the event. I said, how did it go? She said, oh my God, it was awesome. We played this joke on the executive director. I hadn't seen everyone for so long. We just had such an awesome time. We partied to the wee hours of the morning, and I haven't done that since before the kids were born. She went on and on and on. I started thinking, oh, crap, I've missed the only decent one in history. But then, a few weeks later, I caught up with a friend of mine who I'd introduced. I said, oh, here, I missed an awesome night. She went, no, you didn't. I hate them. I want nothing more to do with that association. She was really angry. And I know these people. They're good people. The staff, the board, lovely people. And so I said, what happened? She said, it was all in-jokes. I had no idea what was going on. Everyone was so busy socialising. No one paid any attention to me. There was only one other new member there. This bloke, they sat us both together. He was the biggest sleaze. He kept hitting on me. No one rescued me, and I left before dessert. Now, I know the people in that association are good, and I know she would have been a good fit if they'd just had some volunteer there whose only job was to make sure that the new members and the prospective members were filled in on the backstory and introduced around and made to feel welcome. Then they could have had a very passionate member in their midst because she's the kind of one who goes to events and she is the kind of person who gets engaged. It's the detail that really gets you in the events, and that's why it's absolutely critical to have some things embedded through your staff and through your volunteers to ensure that you're building that community. Because much as I say that a community is your strength, if you don't build ways to integrate people into that community, it can stop your growth. And that's when we talk about creating that buddy system. And don't be afraid to get all of the delegates involved when you do that. And get up the front and say, right, everybody, see those people with the red dots? They're not members yet. Sick 'em. And it's amazing what you can get away with if you chuck in, say it with fun and humour and a bit of a laugh. And try and make sure then everybody's aware what they need to do. And you may also create special functions at your event to either reflect first-timers to bring them all together so they can start to connect. So it might be first-time events or new member functions. But then if you want to enhance the membership value proposition as well, have some member-only functions. You maybe have a great international keynote coming in. Have a small session afterwards that only members can register to attend. Create something special that makes the members feel special. Because really, while you may have the best products, services and events in the world, they're only that if the members think they are, if they perceive them to be valuable and successful. So one of the key things about retaining members is to maintain the perception at all times that someone is better off as a member than a non-member. And a great way to do that at events is to create special things that reflect the members and also enable the members to differentiate themselves from the non-members. I'm off to this event. And so that way the non-members want to join, and you may also create a mechanism at the event where if you want to join to be able to attend this function, go over there and tell people what to do. I don't think they're going to work it out. Be very explicit. And yeah, as I said before, use fun and humour wherever you can, because that really helps with it. A lot of events take themselves way too seriously. But you've got to be careful, though. I ran an event, funny enough, for associations up on the Sunshine Coast, and two things happened at this event. First of all, we hired out a castle, and we hired actors to play a troupe of pirates, and we had the fortune tellers there, and we dressed it, and we got all the delegates to dress up. So when they came, and it was like they were going into an ancient pirate hall. Challenge is just watch how much the pirate drinks, because there was a flaying and there was bare bottoms there, and it was for a group of church leaders, and that really didn't go down as well as it could have done had they not done that. Also, school your exhibitors as well. We did have a bit of a challenge at that conference where it was just after September 11, about a year afterwards, and the beach had this lovely powdery white sand. And one of the exhibitors took a bucket of said powdery white sand home with him and then sent a letter in the mail to everyone who'd attended saying how great it was to meet them, and somewhat lacking in intelligence took a handful of this powdery white sand and dropped it into the envelope and then sent it off to everyone who attended. I found out when the police called me, because he'd sent it to Westpac and shut down 3 floors. The hazmat team were in there and the receptionist was in counselling because she'd opened up this letter and the powdery white sand had gone all over her lap. So do maybe educate your exhibitors that you want to be fun, but don't be stupid. We talked before about interactive events as well. Try and do different formats. I know that there's been a lot of success with a couple of the surgeons associations who, one of them had a surgery done at the stand. So one of the sessions was done at the stand, and can I say the exhibitor paid handsomely for that, but Julian will talk to you more about that later. And the session was run there, and it was showing how a particular tool could be used in open heart surgery, and they did the demonstration there. Those hands-on kind of experiences for the delegates are really great. And, okay, so going through, I'm just looking at the time, realising that I'm going to run out fairly shortly. So when you're going in there as well after the event, because I want to leave some space for questions at the end. So after the event, you've still got opportunities to both recruit and retain members from what you've done. First of all, ring all of the non-members who haven't joined yet and ask the question, hi, what did you think of the event? We just ring up to get some feedback. Now, if they say, the event was awesome, it was the best thing I ever attended in my life, there's where your opportunity to go, great, well, look, if you'd like to keep coming back year after year, would you like to join? Now, if they say the event was crap and I hated every moment, maybe don't ask them to join. Maybe get a bit more feedback and learn a bit more. And then next year you can figure something out with them. Also, when you talk to people, if they liked the event and you still can't get them to join, try and get them to come along to other events. People who attend events are predisposed to attend other events. So bring out your delegate lists from each event and have special marketing programs for them. It's really interesting how few organisations actually segment based on propensity to attend. So I would actually send marketing materials out to the people who attended the event that treat them special. Oh, we know you attended the event last year. We're about to release the program. If you wanted to pre-register, here's a special rate or a special incentive for those who've attended previously. And I'm watching my slides because I'm trying to limit the talking here a little. And also, if you're going to do recruitment and you haven't got someone to join, that's okay. Because just because you're ready to get someone to join, actually, let's do this something else. I'm not going to pick on you. I was looking for another male in the audience. So, up the back there, purple shirt. Do you want to get married? Yes, with a beard, I am talking to you. Would you like to get married? So am I. My husband's just here. But see, you know, any sane man would be fleeing for the door. I'm so glad you're crazy. But this is what we do when we try and get people to join our organisation. Just because we're ready for them to join, we assume that they're ready to join us. But that's not the case. There are lots of things going on in people's lives which mean they may not be ready at the moment. So membership is a bit like dating in that way. So what you have to do is you have to wait till they're ready, and don't assume just because they didn't join at your event that they're not wanting to join. So have a special style of recruitment campaign that you run to people who've attended your events in the past, but give it some time. And focus on the value that they're looking for. Value proposition at the moment is a key element. You could be running the best event in the world, but someone's going to join you because of the value. When they pay money to join an association, it's not a donation. It's an investment in the success of something that's important to them. If I pay money as an individual to join a professional association, that's an investment in the success of my career. I'm hoping to advance further, faster, increase my income, or gain higher levels of recognition in order to have a more successful career. So how, as an association, do you fulfill that success promise? Bearing in mind that what somebody who's younger, how they're going to realise that success, and somebody who's older are going to realise that success is vastly different. If I run a business and I pay to join an industry association, it's an investment in the success of my business. Somehow I want to increase my income, decrease my costs, or get a competitive advantage over someone who isn't a member. So when you are messaging at events, don't just look at the event itself. Think as what is the value that someone can extract from the association, and how do I use messaging that conveys that? Because the worst thing you can do, the worst form of membership marketing is when someone asks, so, you know, what does your association offer? And you respond with a website, a magazine, an email bulletin. We run events, training events, we've got certification. Do you know what? Those things are dull. Every association does that. You've just listed features, and features are boring. You've actually got to look at what people get out of it. For example, nursing associations, there's a lot of them around. There's at least 63 in Australia that I'm aware of. And for one of the associations, the new CEO started, and she was going to professionalise the association. She looked at their magazine, and she was really unimpressed because their magazine, it had, you know, the clinical information, which is useful, but it also had birth, death, marriages, and gossip. And so she went, oh gosh. And she just basically ripped that out, moved it more to the clinical type articles, and then sent it out and didn't bother talking to anybody about it, and was inundated with abuse. And to quote one member, you just ripped the heart out of our association. One of the key value propositions for that association was that sense of connection that the nurses got from that births, deaths, marriages and gossip section of the magazine, because most of their members were located rural and remote and were in one nurse practices. They felt very isolated, and it was that sense of connection that they were looking for. And that's one of the interesting things when you're looking at health-related associations or school-based associations. Often when you look at the standard value proposition as the investment in the success of your career or business, there's a secondary value proposition that is equally as powerful, which is we can also help you to achieve better patient outcomes or better outcomes for your students. So look at that secondary as well, particularly when targeting younger members, because that resonates. Younger members particularly are looking for the public good aspect of the membership. Now, I've tried to leave, which is why I've raced through 15 minutes for questions, because I often find that's the most interesting part of the presentation. Now, so we have 15 minutes. Do we have any questions in the room? Yes?
How do you inspire people within an organisation that events are actually worthwhile investing in? You know, like if you're trying to transition from a direct recruitment model to a, I guess, engaged event recruitment model.
So how do you inspire people in an organisation to understand the critical importance of events within the membership marketing process? Well, it depends on the individuals, but often I use data. and actually show examples of where it's worked for other organisations. Because I found that if I just go in and talk and say, I think, it never works. But if I say, well, this association did this association did this, and this data supports the success that they had, and so therefore I think this is a valid pathway forward for us, that data and context supported argument is very hard for people to argue against. And are you talking about arguing to a board or your CEO? Okay, so the decision to join had a fascinating aspect to the research. They devoted a whole chapter to the fact that boards are not representative of their members. And if you, and I've photocopied that for CEOs to pass to their boards many, many times. Basically, the decision to join research found this, that when someone first joins their association, they're very much interested in what's in it for me, what am I going to get out of it, because they're not yet engaged with the collegiate nature of associations. Now, the longer that somebody is a member, the greater their perception of the value of the association grows, and it increases to significantly higher than the average member who sit back up into this up to 8 years segment. Where do you think most of your board members come from? This end or this end? The higher end. And so what happens is if most of your board pool comes from this end up here, then collectively their opinions and their perceptions of the value of the association cannot be held to be representative of the majority of the association. And the decision to join devoted a whole chapter to this fact and said that therefore it is critical that boards base their decisions on research and facts and data rather than their own gut opinions. And that is why when I'm reporting on events, and in fact membership and anything else to a board, I really tried hard to do context-based reporting. So for example, if I'm putting up my membership retention rates for the year, now, who here measures their retention rates for membership? I'm going to have to sob quietly to myself because that wasn't 100 people or 100% of people. Okay, you must, if you were to base your decisions on facts, you need to be measuring your retention rate. So it means out of 100 people who are members last year, how many of them are still members? If it's 50, then you've got a 50% retention rate. A 50% retention rate scares the crap out of me because it means you've got 100% churn of members every 2 years. These are the basic statistics you must learn or must use. But you need to do them by segment. So if you're a first career professional association, like the Australian Medical Association, where people tend to go to uni, come out and follow a particular career path, then you would want to segment by, at the very least, career life cycle to understand how your retention rate differs. Because I guarantee you, in that instance, it will be your younger members will have a lower retention rate. You'll find there will be certain segments, generally your older areas, that will have a higher one. Now, the reason that this information is critical, because as a membership marketer, then you can say, right, well, our retention rate is 93% here, which is above average. Excellent, let's just stay the course here and we don't need to do any extra work at this particular point. But the retention rate here is only 79%. That's way below benchmark for a professional association. So we need to work on retention. And then you might say, and this random segment here is 96%, which is incredible. Let's do recruitment work here. So it really enables you to really specifically target where you're going to invest your time and money each year. But the other thing you need to do is you need to provide trend-based analysis. So if I said to you now, my retention rate's 86%, how do you know if that is good or bad if you don't know what last year and the year before was? If my retention rate last year was 96%, and now it's 86%, then now I'm worried. But if last year it was 52% and now it's 86%, I'm going to give you a pay rise. You need to have the trend analysis in there to give context to what your statistics are now. And when I'm looking at events, one of the things that I'd be looking at, what was our overall recruitment for membership, and what percentage of that was achieved through events? And of those who were recruited through events, what is their retention rate compared to the overall membership? When you've got that kind of data sitting behind you, any argument you have becomes much more powerful. Any other questions? You're a very quiet bunch. Events, membership, just no sponsorship because I'll leave that for him. Yep.
How do you see events help really small organisations, not-for-profit, with only 3 part-time staff?
Oh, look, I've been in an organisation where we ran 120 events a year with 3 staff. And the events were massively successful for us from a few different areas. First of all, it gave us money. We geared the events so that they were extremely profitable. The second thing is, we enabled us to target what I call low-hanging fruit members. People who have a propensity to join events are more likely to be retained. And for a small association with limited resources, if you can really appeal to that market that likes to attend events, you start to build a very solid core of members that are likely to be retained. The hardest members to retain are those ones who never want to go to an event, and they just want to engage. And there are people who've come up with solutions around that. The Chris Champion at the IPWA, the Institute of Public Works Engineering, he's one of the few people who managed to get a private social network up and running and working effectively. Now, private social networks, generally when someone tells me they're going to do one of those, I shut up, because I know that 99% of them don't work and they crash and burn and they become wastelands that no one goes to. But Chris actually managed to pull it off. He implemented his so effectively that in 2 years, it was the #1 reason that people joined and renewed. And I'm surprised he didn't sit in a corner laughing evilly, because all he needs to do for his members to join and renew is make sure the servers are switched on. That's it, because they create their own content. But here's a rare success story when it comes to appealing to those members who don't like to engage in events. So for a small association, events really should be the thing that drives you financially. And when we were talking about percentages of income as well, and sorry, we're kind of going into what could be a whole other area, but the short thing is, your income should be no more than 30% from membership. If your income is more than 30% derived from membership, you really need to look at diversification. There should be at least 3 solid income streams, and generally for associations, that's events, memberships, and partnerships. But there are other income streams, and unfortunately, I don't have those slides here today, but that's what we look at. But anything more than 30% is starting to get a bit risky. I do know some associations that are close to 100%, and when you hit dire economic times, or if something bad happens, you're really, in a high-risk position. Any other questions? Feel free. I'm still within time, which I'm surprised. Normally, I don't have time for lots of questions. 1, then 2. So yes?
So was Chris Champion's private social network through
Oh, no. There are 2 companies that have dedicated private social networks, Socius and Higher Logic. But I understand just recently one took over the other, but I can't remember which took over which. LinkedIn and Facebook, there's limitations on those groups, and I understand that they're a nice stepping stone for a lot of organisations, but things like the Higher Logic and Socius products, and even some of the other ones that are linked into the various databases that are available, provide a greater ability for the association to control the interactions and to lock out the non-members, and also to leverage income off it as well through ad placements and things like that. There's a lot of things you can do regarding sponsorship in those networks. Yep.
In terms of event management tools and softwares and things, have you got any favourites?
Oh, is there any tech companies in the room who might sue me? Most association management technology right now, okay, this is Chatham House rules. If any of you get me in trouble, I'll be really upset. But look, most technology is crap. Because what's happened is you've got the big server-based systems that existed since the 90s that are struggling to adapt to a cloud environment, and they haven't effectively adapted. They're in the midst of that at the moment. And then you have all of these new cloud-based systems coming out that are, say they can do everything, but I know of 3 court cases at the moment because they said they could do everything, but when the association said, yep, here's your money, take my money and put it in, they went, okay, well, this is future functionality, and this is what we can do right now, which is a lot less than what we said we could do. And when it comes to the dedicated events management systems, the problem that you have is they're mostly set up for PCOs. And so if you try to put in one of your standard events management systems like Unglebrook or someone like that, they're all set up so that there's specific events. And if a member comes in and updates their details in one event, it doesn't carry over to the other events. And that can be really frustrating and lead to a lot of double, triple, quadruple handling. When it comes to integrated events membership software at the moment, there's only one company who I recommend, and even they're not suitable for every association, and that's Wild Apricot, because they're cheap as chips. They're like $100 to $200 a month, and that's it, no setup fee. And they do the functionality that's required by 90% of associations. I've run conferences off that software. And the thing is, though, you've got to be relatively technically adept to get in and set up the fields, because you really do create your own system in there. Yep. Okay. Interesting. I've not heard of that one. My only caution would be for anybody going for any software would be most software out there is geared for professional associations, i.e. individual membership organisations. Who here has organisational memberships? Okay, you really got a hard job, because you've got to find software, and through Wild Apricot's one of them, and I don't know if this other one does, but you've got to have some kind of relational database which enables you to maintain a relationship and engagement, not just with your primary contact, but with your secondary contacts. Industry associations have a very particular challenge. And anyone with the so even if you're a professional association that allows practice membership for doctors or whatever it happens to be, your challenge is that if your primary contact leaves, often the membership is gone. So you have to develop a one-on-one relationship with multiple contacts within each organisation. And some of those, like I've got members who've got hospitals as one member. And so you can imagine the number of staff. And something that a nurse is interested in is not what the CEO of the hospital or the board are going to be interested in. So you've got to have the ability to segment your communications. And I know a lot of people, when I say, oh, you have to segment your communications, are like, oh, crap, we just don't have the resources for extra work like that. But it's not extra work. If you want to, good segmentation is basically don't send people crap they're not interested in. So it doesn't mean sending people more, it means sending people less. The goal of your communications should be to make them so relevant, so interesting, so useful to the person receiving it that they rush to open it before anything else in their inbox. Now, that means that you need to just have your database set up so you understand what people are interested in. You want to send people stuff they don't know that's going to be immediately useful for them. And if everything you send fits that criteria, then you can send people things 6 times a day and they'll still be happy because it's relevant, useful, insightful. And it just means when you're sending out some information, think like with the Australian Medical Association with that conference. I said to them, those 8 emails, don't send them to the younger doctors because you wonder why your open rates for everything else you send them is going down. And in fact, when it comes to comms, we also, because we're doing a lot of work with their comms strategy at the moment, and they're having a real issue cutting through to the younger members. And one of the things that they're really keen to promote is their holiday program. I said, well, show me the promos that you send out. And they showed me these emails. I was like, holy crap, that's boring. That's really bad. Who does that go to? And they said, oh, everybody. I said, oh, really? I said, let's do everything different. Let's segment for your older members. Let's use some visuals. Let's use some visuals of doctors on cruises, trains, caravanning holidays, and let's talk about those specific offers that you've got, because you're looking at the data that's come back from the holiday company. Those are the things that your older doctors are doing. So let's use some testimonials from doctors who use the service. Testimonials are awesome, by the way. Testimonials from doctors who use the service. Now, for the younger members, we know that they're just not interested in what you're promoting. So let's do something else. Let's come up with a cheeky postcard campaign, and we'll integrate it with some social media as well as a little bit on the email. The older members are never going to see it, but let's look at what they're buying. So they're buying Fiji, Thailand, it's beach holidays. So let's use some images of, say, 2 doctors with a stethoscope on a beach in Thailand up to a cocktail. And let's make it fun, a little bit cheeky. And so we're completely restructuring the branding that they're delivering into the younger doctor market, and we're bringing in more of that virability aspect. And you know, the funny thing is, New Zealand was actually the forefront of this. The New Zealand Baking Industry Association in 2007, to promote their event program for their awards, they did it through a viral clip of gingerbread men in the oven doing a haka. And it was hilarious, and it got forwarded all over the place. But the whole purpose of that was to promote the Baking Industry Awards. And they did that every year. I don't know if they still do it, but I know that there was at least 5 or 6 years that they were doing that. That kind of thing really engages the younger members. And it's really important to reflect that the changing way that young people communicate now means that you must segment if you want to reach them. And with social media, if you're going to go down that path, be careful. It can suck the time out of you. So have a clear reason for being on social media. So why are we going on social media? Because we want to get delegates for our events. Okay, well, who are we targeting? These people. Right, what social media do they use? Right. How are we going to measure this? Because we want to generate XYZ inquiries. Great. Okay, so when are we going to measure it? Have specific reporting to understand how that investment of time that you're making in social media is returning to make sure it's worthwhile. And if you are going to go down that path, then really look at things like Follow Me for promoting your events and other things. Do you know what Follow Me is? It's where, say, for example, someone goes to your website and looks at your event. As they go to other websites, advertisements for your event will pop up. And it's kind of, you know, when you might be looking for a new vacuum cleaner and suddenly the ads for that vacuum cleaner pop up on sites that you go to in future. Kind of can feel a bit stalky, but it's very effective. So don't just go, right, I'm going to send a tweet and that's it. And if you're going to, oh God, sorry, so many things with this, but, and I know I've got like 30 seconds left. If you're going to do things and say, we keep our members up to date, I was working with a group of accountants, an association for accountants, and I said to them, you know, you promote that you keep your members up to date. Do you really? The tax office computer systems went down last month and actually gone down frequently recently. What have you done? And one guy put his hand up and said, I sent a press release. I said, okay, that's good. It's a good start. Step 1. Step 2, if younger people now, when they think about being kept up to date, they're talking, right, I want in every 5 or 10 minutes what's going on, who you talk to, when the system's going to come back up. Did you think to have a section on your website that people go to, or on Twitter or on your Facebook, that said, right, we've spoken to the tax office again and they think it's going to be another 3 hours, or I'm still on hold, can you believe it? It's something that actually engages because they have that level of need to be kept up to date. And that's the kind of thing that people are looking for, real, tangible. You are better to have a few things that you're doing exceptionally well that people really go, wow, that's awesome, that is really valuable. I would miss that if you disappeared tomorrow, than having lots and lots and lots of mediocre offerings. And that same thing applies to your events. If you want your events to recruit and retain, you can use all these techniques. But what's really going to make them powerful is if they really tangibly make a difference in the lives of the people who are attending those. And it's there, you just have to action it. Thanks very much.